Shot to right, slicing toward the Pesky pole down the line. It is going to be out of here. Line down the right field line toward the Pesky pole. Leaping up, and that ball is gone. That's a home run. A lot of our Nesson team as well. High fly down the right field line, headed toward the Pesky pole. That one tucked in, and that ball is going to be against the wall and into second base. Number retired, and now Rafael Devers trying to retire that baseball inside the Pesky pole.
Welcome, everybody, to the next episode of the Pesky Podcast. I am George, the OG Sutherland, and yes, that's right, I'm not the Rit. Rick got called away unexpectedly, so I'm in the big chair tonight. We're going to do our 2024 Red Sox preview show tonight, and with me is our special guest, Rob. Rob, how you doing, man? It's been a while since we talked, so what's happening?
I'm doing good. George. Same old, just working and getting ready for the season. I'm super excited, and I'm always happy to be on here with you guys.
Oh, we're happy to have you. And yeah, I think I'm ready for real baseball to start. You know, it's been an interesting winter and spring, and let's just get this thing started and see what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things we're going to do tonight is we're going to go and we're going to talk about the team is constructed, and we're going to go over the various players. So I figured we'd start with the infield. Mm-hmm. And why don't we start with the big guy himself, Mr. Rafael Devers? So why don't you give us some thoughts on Rafi, Rob?
Well, one thing about Rafael Devers is he's the face of this franchise. He is the man who the Red Sox want to be the face of this franchise for many, many years. And he has been looking really, really good this spring, hitting a lot of homers. He has 4 homers this spring. He leads the team. And I love how Rafi has changed his approach this offseason. It looks like he's striking out less than cutting down on the strikeouts, and has got a little bit better defensively at third base. And it looks like instead of pulling the ball, he's been taking the ball to the opposite field a lot more, which he was always known for, going opposite field. But we've been seeing it a lot more this spring, especially most of his home runs have been going at least over that Fenway South Green Monster. So it looks like he's made some adjustments with his hands, lowered his hands a little bit more down so he gets more contact through the ball and has a straighter swing. And it's looked really good. And we've seen a lot of good production from him this spring.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. He has gone oppo an awful lot. And I think that's going to pay him even more dividends. And I think it's going to get him a few more RBIs. I think it's going to put him on base a lot more. I mean, today in the game against the Braves, he took one to right field, left field rather, and that's what he should be doing. Take what the pitcher gives you, and it was against Fried, who was a pretty good left-handed pitcher. So that's the way. That's what you really want to see going. That, and as far as leadership goes, I think. Last year he was kind of caught in the crossfire a little bit. Story wasn't around. He just lost Bogarts. There was an awful lot of turmoil, what was going on, and I just think that he grew into it. It was kind of like he kind of said, "Well, I'm the man now," and he has no excuse, and he's spoken up to management, and that's good. I think that I'm looking to him to have a very explosive year. I see him hitting 40, 41 home runs and knocking in 125, 130 runs. It would be time. I think that he's more than overdue for that.
Yeah, he really is. Especially last year in a quote unquote down year. I say a down year because his average wasn't as good as he usually is. Usually hits around 290 to close to 300. He did hit 30 homers last year and drove in 100 RBIs, which was good to see. And in a down year, I'll take that in a down year every year. But I could especially see him hitting 40 home runs this year. It looks like his approach at the plate has changed. And I think, that leadership role is very important. He's a guy who has been here in almost now 7 years, 8 years, going on 8 years soon with this team. And he's very well, he developed since a rookie, which is great to see. And especially Rafael Devers taking that leadership role into his own hands. I mean, last year we saw with the turmoil, a lot of rumors with JD Martinez, or how Xander Bogaerts left, and how there was a lot of going on in that clubhouse with vets. I think Justin Turner coming in here last year and given him a view of how Justin Turner leads things, how to be a leader, really helped him shape how he is as a leader now. And shout out to Justin Turner. Hope he's doing good in Toronto.
Yeah, Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Turner because he added so much to the club. And not only in his play, his leadership. Started off in spring training last year when he took that one in the kisser, and basically 2 weeks later shrugged it off, and he's back in, and that was a testimony to the younger players. Hey guys, this is how you do it. And I hope he does well in Toronto, except when they play Boston. But go beat up on the Yankees and everybody else in the division for us, will you? I think it's time. He has matured. I mean, he kept as a 19-year-old, right? And he's coming into his own. And I think that he feels very comfortable in Boston now. He signed up for a long term, and we're looking good. So I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about Trevor Story, and let's kind of delve into what do you expect to see from him this year, based upon his past performances in Colorado. I mean, he really hasn't done anything, except for a couple of weeks when he in the 22, where he was just basically off the wall. I mean, so.
I remember. So one thing I know about Trevor Story, like you mentioned in that 2022 string, it was that series against Seattle when he went off, had a 3-homer game, and then hit a grand slam the next day. I was at that game where he hit a grand slam. It was so crazy. Cool. It was so much fun. And I think one thing about Trevor Story is that he is, in the past, especially with the Colorado Rockies, when he came up in the time that he was there, he was known not only for his glove, because that's the one thing that Trevor Story was always known for was his glove, but he had an electric bat. He's a guy who hit 30-plus homers, drove in 100-plus runs this year, and also played a very elite defensive shortstop. I mean, it was hard to fill those shoes, especially because he was filling the shoes of Troy Tulowitzki, who was an all-time Rocky great at shortstop. So him coming to the Red Sox, this is his first. I expect big things. I expect a comeback player of the year. I really believe that he could win it, especially how he's looked this spring. Early in the spring, we've seen a lot of strikeouts, and he was starting to. I mean, that's the one thing with Story that you got to understand. He's going to strike out a lot, but if he can cut down on that strikeout number, he's going to look really good at the plate. He's a guy who can drive in runs, go the opposite way. He has a very good swing, and he has great speed, and that's one thing that you like too, because at the top of the lineup, if you have him and Jarren Duran at the top, you have very good speed at the top of the lineup that can steal bags and drive you in runs. And that's one thing too. Trevor Story, like I mentioned with the glove, he is an amazing shortstop, and he played shortstop almost towards the end of the year, and he still had, I believe it was like 5 or 6 defensive runs saved, which was at the top of the defensive shortstop position. And that's missing almost half the season. He saves a lot of runs, and he has a lot of value at shortstop. I think he's going to have a great breakout year with the Red Sox. Finally a full healthy offseason for Trevor Story. I expect big things.
Yeah, I do too. And I think that's one of the things that is huge. When he came back, he rushed himself. He probably could use a few more at bats down in the minors on his rehab assignment, but he was trying to get back. He recognized the team was still in contention for a wild card race, and he did. But he started out. He just never found his groove. He was fine with the glove, and that's what that's great. Yeah, I think he's out to prove himself. He started with the little mini camp that he had for the minor leaguers and the middle infielders, had them all down there, and had a chance to work together. That's taken a leadership role. I think that helps Raffy a little bit as well. He looks locked in. He looks locked in. And yeah, this could be a year where he gets 25, 30 bombs and steals 25 bases, because he can. And that'll add a dynamic to the lineup that really hasn't been there in any great depth with the Red Sox that I can ever remember, the amount of speed that this roster has. So yeah, I'm looking forward to him to put up some very big numbers, kind of prove to the club and the fans, hey, this is what you paid for when you signed me. Yeah, I came in late and I had some injuries and all the rest, but yeah, this is the player you got. And yeah, the strikeouts are going to come, but the production on the other side you're going to forget about those. So yeah, absolutely. Sure. So next I want to talk about Tristan Casas. So we finished a rookie season and we're into a second season. So what do you see for the big guy?
One thing I saw from Tristan Casas last year, especially in the first half of the season, he was really sluggish out the gate. And I noticed like right before the All-Star break, I don't know what it was with Tristan Casas. He was just slumping. And it seemed maybe he was because even at the when his rookie year, when he got called, even technically last year was his rookie year, but his when he got called up in September call-ups in 2022, you could see that he showed a little glimpse of power, but he wasn't comfortable at the plate. And what you saw what he did last year is at the beginning of the year, he had more of a wide open stance towards like the All-Star break, after the All-Star break, which is kind of crazy to think. He had over 1,000 OPS. Only 3 players had it over 1,000 OPS after the All-Star break. You want to know who those 2 players are? Ronald Acuna, who won the NL MVP, and Mookie Betts, who was runner-up. He closed his stance a little bit more, lowered his hands, and he was able to drive through the ball. And one thing I love about Tristan Casas is his defense looks pretty good this spring too. A lot of people were talking about how his defense wasn't the best, but he is one guy who has great plate approach. He walks a lot, gets on base. That OPS and that OPS plus is going to be really good. And the power numbers were pretty good too last year. I think he's a guy, when he develops fully, is a guy who can hit you 30 plus homers, driving 100 plus RBIs, have a great on base percentage, and then also, I mean, that unassisted double play he made today. What an amazing play at first base!
Oh my God, that was phenomenal. And getting Albie's too. The look on Albie's face was,
he was in
what?
disbelief.
And then he hops over him to make it even more spectacular. No, he made 2 great plays today. I think that the big problem I had with him at first base last year was that he didn't get off the bag to try to save the throws. He was glued to the bag. He never made the effort to get off and try to help save his fellow defender. I think that comes with more time. I think they, in terms of his defensive capabilities, I think they overlooked him, but then realized that they really can't, and they had to solidify that if he was going to be the kind of player we all think that he can be. And yeah, I think he's good for probably right around 30 home runs, 100 plus RBIs. I also think that he looks more relaxed now. And he's kind of said, well, I can do this leader thing as well. And, he showed up at Trevor Story's camp to work with the infielders. So that says a lot as well. So I'm very excited to see what he does in his second year. So far, I'm, fairly impressed, particularly with his defense. So, and that's an area that the team has certainly tried to rectify this year. And so I'm looking forward to seeing, the complete package this year from him. 1 year removed from being a rookie.
I'm super excited for him this year, especially like you mentioned about that rookie camp. It's great to see him going there. He's like, no, I understand it's a rookie camp. I want to go there and help out and show leadership. And that's really good because you have a lot of young guys who look up to players who are coming up in the majors. And it just not only builds team chemistry, but it makes sure, especially when it comes to infield too, it builds infield is all about like baseball is a team sport. If you build good chemistry in your infield, guys are going to trust you more. And I love how he's taken on that leadership role. And especially he's been one of the guys who have the best personalities in baseball, one of the nicest guys on the team, and he's really taken into a role of himself, and it looks like he's more comfortable, especially like embracing himself, and just like even earlier in the year, like in 2022, he was sunbathed, and some of the veterans are like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah.
And now it's like he embraces it, and it's great. I love his personality, and he's a great person to have in the city.
Yeah, no, he absolutely belongs, and I think that. I think the fans are growing to like it because he's a cool dude, and he just nothing phases him. He just goes about his business, never looks worried. He's kind of like, yeah, okay, fine. And then next thing you know, he's doing phenomenal things. So that's really good. I want to talk a little bit about second base because right now it's going to be second base by committee. We had all gone into the season thinking that Vaughn Grissom, was going to be there, but he's had some leg injuries, and he was the return for Chris Sale, which, by the way, I agree that was the right time to do that. But I mean, for right now, it's going to be a revolving door between Reyes and Valdez. So, what are your thoughts there?
I really like Emmanuel Valdez, and I feel like also Pablo Reyes, who had an amazing year last year with the Red Sox, and he showed a lot of – he was really good with the bat, but also really good with the glove last year. Yeah, he had some glimpses, but then he was 50-50. He had some amazing plays, but then again, he was not the best defensively. But the one thing I'm going to tell you is right now with Von Grissom being hurt, it kind of sucks because we did trade him for Chris Sale. Like, I agree, though, it was the right time, right place. Obviously, you can't control. Maybe he needed a change of scenery so that he could perform better. And I just feel like right now, Emmanuel Valdez, you're going to get power numbers. You've seen it in the Dominican series. He was hitting the ball, pulling the ball to right field. He's got a lot of good power. The glove, he has been improving a little bit. Obviously, that's the one downside to Valdez's game, is that kind of defensively, he's a liability out there, but he's been working on it. He's been looking good. He's been taking infield practice, especially a lot through the offseason, and it's looked a lot better. His hands look a little bit more softer. He's going through the ball instead of kind of like letting the ball play him. And he's a great hitter. I think he's he's got a lot of potential here to, at least if he played every day, he could have a potential to hit 20 plus homers, but it's going to be a bridge, obviously, until Von Grissom comes back, who is an elite prospect, by the way, so good at the plate, and he has big potential. And then Pablo Reyes, you can't like him. You cannot like Pablo Reyes. He's such a great guy, good personality, and he hits for contact. He gets on base, and he allows you to be more flexible because he could play second base, he could play third base, he could play anywhere you need him to. Pablo Reyes is just a good clubhouse guy.
He is, and he brings energy as well. And in terms of Valdez, I've seen the defensive improvement a little bit. He is positioned better. I think they got him positioned a little bit better. They just wanted to make the simple plays. Okay, we're not asking you to be a Gold Glover. We make the simple plays. Don't do anything stupid. If you have to eat the ball, eat the ball. And yesterday he snagged down a little pop fly that was starting to drift away due to the wind, and he stayed with it. So, he's starting to look a little bit more serviceable at second base. And Reyes there is not going to hurt you anyway, and he can play all around the infield. And we can all wait for Von Grissom's arrival to the lineup. Probably the end of this month, maybe the first week in May. We'll see. But nobody tells me anything, so who knows? So
hopefully he does. I love him.
Yeah, no, I really, he has some really sick tools with respect to getting on base and running and getting for power, and he's got to love Fenway because it's where he hit his first dinger. So we're looking to see that. Let's go to the outfield. A lot got settled in the last week with Ref Snyder going out after having that really weird situation where he fouled the ball off his pinky toe, and ouch, we've all done stupid things with our toes, so we know how that is. But that kind of opened the door for Rafaela to be in center field. So let's talk about the outfield. What do you think the mix is going to be?
For me, I think right now, moving forward, your best options here for your opening day outfield, I think Jared Duran should be your left fielder. I mean, he's good. He made some good plays in center field, but I think having him in left field will be good. He could play the wall pretty well. And defensively, he's improving, but playing left field at Fenway Park, as long as you know how to play that wall, you'll be okay. And you need an athlete in center field, and that's why I want Rafaela playing center field. The dude's an athlete. He can play anywhere in the field, play second base and shortstop a little bit last year with the Red Sox. And he deserves to be on this opening day team because this spring he had an amazing spring. He had 3 to 4 homers this spring, made some amazing plays out there in center field. He's a spark plug, and he's got great speed. He reminds me of like a young Mookie Betts, the way his swing is. He's just electric. And then in right field, this is where I have a take here. I love Willie Abreu, but he's been looking kind of rough this spring. He's hitting 140 in the spring. Hasn't really shown what he can do, especially in that short time with the Red Sox and those 30 at-bats, hitting 316 in the last year when he got called up. I think Tyler O'Neill's going to be the starting right fielder. It just makes perfect sense, especially how he's been playing this spring, too. He's been hitting the ball very well, showing a little bit of power, and I think Tyler O'Neill's also a good defender out there. You can hide him in right. I mean, in center field, he had good years with the Cardinals, and I feel like he'll have a great year with the Red Sox. And I think on the bench, obviously, you'll have Willie Abreu and then Bobby Dahlbeck. It looks like they're saying he might make the opening day roster, probably as a backup first baseman, but he can also play a corner outfield because the Red Sox just released CJ Cron. Obviously, he exercised his opt out, so he will not be on the Red Sox.
No,
so Bobby Dahlbeck
they cut him loose today, so Cronen's gone. Yeah, I mean, for me, the outfield is Duran does belong in left field. He does. My take on him was always he didn't make great reads on the ball when he went to go back, and we've seen a couple of instances with that. In left field, he doesn't have to be spectacular. He just has to make the plays. Rafael in center field, yes, absolutely. The kid, he's got blazing speed, and he can cover a lot of ground. So you picture an outfield where you have three fast outfielders with Duran, Rafaela, and O'Neill. All three guys can run. You cover a lot of ground. And yes, I think O'Neill will star in right field at Fenway. I think that he has that. The big thing is with him, kind of like what we saw last year with Duvall, his big thing is keep him on the field. He's been one of these guys that, it's a hammy or it's whatever. If he can put together a reasonably full season, you're going to get what he was in 2019. And that was a really good player. Plus it's a 1 year deal. So he's out to prove himself and get paid. So, players like that generally perform fairly well. How much time do you think Massa is going to see? The last couple of games, he's seen some time in left field. How much time do you think Massa is going to see in the outfield?
I think Massa might not get as many reps as we think. I think strictly right now, it looks like he's going to be the everyday DH, it looks like. And I feel like, obviously, if you need to give – it depends on how – you got to – in baseball, throughout the year, you got to ride the hot hand. If someone's hitting cold, like let's say Jaron Duran's not performing to what – and he needs a day off. He's slumping. He needs a day off to reset himself. Masa's been looking pretty decent in left field. He hasn't really looked too bad out there. The one thing about Masataka Yoshida is his bat's so amazing. But one thing that people always criticize is his defense. I mean, you can hide that in left field. And it looks like he's been getting some better reps this offseason. It looks like he's been playing the ball a little bit better. But I strictly think Masa's probably going to be the everyday DH. And maybe you'll mix in Tristan Casas a few times if you want to put Bobby F first and get Casas off his feet. But I think Masa's going to be the everyday DH. And maybe you might see him getting some reps in left field if you want to obviously get some guys loose and get some guys and change the lineup a little bit. Because sometimes when you got to ride the hot hand in baseball. If you have hot hitters, you have to ride your hottest hand.
Right. And they are left heavy, so they've got to shuffle it up a little bit to make it work. As far as my turn, William Abreu, I love the kid. I think he's got enough to get a horrible start. Yeah, he's hitting 140, but he drew a couple of walks today. He's starting to show the patience. He looks right now like he's just that close to turning it on. There's no trouble with his defense, and he goes. He had a play today where he went first to third and did everything he's supposed to do. And he can run. He's not a burner, but he's a good defensive player as well. So I think he definitely sticks. And to me, he looks like he's just about there. He just got off to a slow start. Not uncommon. I think that happened to him when he got to Portland last year a little bit. So I believe that he's due to break it. And I think it's a very good problem to have, and that, he could be a long-term solution, in right field. So let's go behind the plate. I mean, let's talk about Wong and McGuire for a little bit. I'm not a big McGuire fan. If you've listened enough times, I wish he was not here. He would be I would buy him the ticket to get out. I just sorry, don't like him. I was kind of hoping that Perez would show enough that they'd bring him up as the defensive backup and whatever, but I guess that's not going to be the case. Plus, he hits a granny the other day, so everybody's salivating the fact that he can hit, right? Let's talk about catching. Everybody's waiting in the wings, for the man himself. But let's talk about Wong as your starting catcher.
I really like Wong as a starting catcher just because the one thing I love about Connor Wong is his defense is what saves you games. And it looks like he's really good with the pop time, especially he got a lot of runners out last year. He's a good defensive catcher. Yes, the bat is kind of like shaky at times, but Connor Wong is a guy that you're going to keep in there for his defense, and he's going to save you a lot of runs. And that's what you need behind the plate. You need a really good defensive catcher, especially with a lot of pass balls and wild pitches. You need someone who can block the ball and keep the ball in front of the plate, because if that's one thing in baseball that you need to make sure you can handle, you have to be able to handle your pitching staff, and he does a really good job of controlling the pitching staff, and it looks like he calls a good game. As for Reese McGuire, I think he's kind of like one of those guys who's going to be obviously your backup catcher, but he's going to be the personal catcher, I think, for Brian Bayo. They got a really good friendship. It's going to be like one of those situations where John Lester, when he pitched with us, when David Ross was here, he had David
Right.
Ross as his personal catcher. And everybody, I feel like everybody has like a personal catcher. I forget. There was someone on that 2018 team. And I think it was Erod. It was him and Sandy Leone. Chris Sale. Chris Sale always had Sandy Leone catching him when they were together. And everybody else it would be.
He got released today, so
maybe maybe he should go to the Braves. Then he can have his own personal catcher back.
There you go. He's probably lobbying for it today. Yeah, I mean, one thing about Wong, and he's the last survivor of the Mookie trade, is that he is not built like a catcher. He's built like an infielder, and he's got speed, not like a catcher, like an infielder. He can run. And he's a very heady ball player. You can see it. And one thing he's done this spring is he's concentrated a little bit in simplifying what he does at the plate. He was saying he got rid of the toe tap and said, "Listen, I got to simplify things and make it easy for myself." And it's starting to pay some dividends. So I like that. McGuire, well, not my favorite player. He is what he is. He's a backup catcher. He will be, like I said, probably Bayo's personal guy, which everybody's got. That's fine. We'll see what happens. His defense is not all that great. He does not control the running game well. I think it's an accident when he throws a runner out. Personally, and it's probably a cruel thing to say, but he does not impress me behind the plate. Where Wong, I have every expectation that if he doesn't throw him out, it's going to be bloody close. So, let's talk about the bench and let's go. We already talked about second base and the guys there, but let's talk about Bobby D.
Bobby D.
Or as Britt likes to call him, Throbby D. I mean, I am happy that he has made the team. I didn't think he was. I got on the record. I thought that they were going to stiff him again, but I think that he's done enough, and I think he's made himself extremely versatile. He can play both corners. Okay, came up that way, and played time in right field in Worcester last year, if I'm not mistaken, as well. So I mean, he's made himself versatile. He's a right-handed hitter. We know he's got some pop. We know what his holes are in his swing and in his game. But, if he gets locked on, he's just got to learn how to be a good bench player because, he put up some really good numbers in Worcester, but he was playing every day. So what are your thoughts on that?
I really like Bobby Dahlbeck, and like you said, I'm very happy that he made the team because he's a guy who, in Worcester, he was amazing last year. I think he won the minor league MVP that year. He's a great guy, a great person, and I think having him on this team is going, like you said, it's going to be very helpful because he is versatile. He learned how to play a little bit of the outfield. He could play third base. He could play first base. I believe he came up as a third baseman, but obviously if you need to give Rafael Devers in a couple days, slot him at DH, then you can put Massa in the outfield and Bobby at third, and he can play shortstop in case of an emergency, which I hope we don't have this year. But I do like Bobby Dahlbeck and his versatility. The one thing that Bobby Dahlbeck was really known for, especially in his time in Boston, he has a lot of power, but the strikeout numbers scare me a little bit. It seems like his plate approach is like getting a lot better. This spring we've seen it, and especially in Worcester too, we've seen his plate approach getting a little bit better. Even when in 2021 and 2022, he chased a lot of balls. It looks like he's improving on that, which is good. That's what you want to see. You want to work out long at bats. And I feel like one thing that scared me when he was on the team was the strikeout numbers. He would strike out every time he was at the plate, but now it looks like he's dialed that down a lot. He's had a better approach at the plate, and it's good to have someone versatile, especially a guy like Bobby Dahlbeck, who has proved himself in the minors that he deserves to at least have a spot on this team because I feel bad. We were talking in the offseason, trade Bobby Dahlbeck. He deserves better. Now he's on a team.
Place where he can play. Yeah, that because we all felt really good. We talked. It was the Christmas show. We talked about that. He deserves a chance because he's been such a good soldier. I think with Bobby, I think in 2020 when he came up, he launched 8 bombs, and he fell in love with his swing, and then he started to get a little bit more success in 21. Schwarber got in his ear and got him squared away for a while, but he hasn't been the same player since. And I think that if he can cut down on the strikeouts, as you said, and get used to the fact that he's only going to play, maybe once a week, and then come in, in an emergency in the outfield, or the defensive replacement at third base. I don't know. That's going to be a different dynamic for him. So he's got to be, he has to be prepared at all times to come in and contribute. If he can handle that, then he will be a very good bench player for the Red Sox. To go along with Reyes as the eventual bench player when Grissom comes back, and we'll see what happens. Although, the situation with Valdez, Reyes, and Dahlback is which of those two stay when Grissom comes back. But Rosses have a way of working themselves out. Injuries happen, so it's kind of like you have to play a wait and see game. So let's get to the heart of what Red Sox Nation really cares about, is pitching.
Here we go.
So, let's talk about the starting rotation a little bit. I mean, it's everybody wanted Jordan Montgomery. He's not here. I don't see it happening. If I was him right now, I'd be really ticked off at Boris not being on an opening day roster. I wrote about that last week, and I don't think he does himself any good by doing that. They signed Anderson today to be a long man for him, for them. That's good. He can start in a spot. That's good. He's got 10 years in MLB. Nice pickup as a bench, as an added option and for an arm. But let's look at the rotation. You got Bayo, Pivetta, Crawford, Houck, and Whitlock. Are any of them spectacular? No. Are they consistent to some degree? Okay. But it's not like last year. I mean, you were praying that Paxton would come in and do something. He gave you more than you could ever hope for. And Corey Kluber, as I've come to name him now after he's been gone, a Corey Klubust, that just didn't happen. He lost Houck to an injury last year. I mean, they need consistency, and they need better defense. But consistency is the thing. To me, I think the difference makers are going to be the front three in Bayo, Pivetta, and Crawford. Now, Crawford got touched up a little bit today because he hung a couple of sliders that backed up and got put in the monster or over the monster down in Florida. Pivetta found his sweeper, and that made all the difference in the world. And Bayo, 2 spring trainings and the winters working with Pedro is starting to pay off. So, what are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts on this rotation is definitely, I feel a little bit more comfortable than I did last year, at least with like the health of the rotation, because it feels good to have a solid five that you can take the ball every day. The one thing is that stinks. Obviously, we got to mention Lucas Giolito. I hope his injury and his process goes really fast, because it just sucks. Because when the Red Sox signed Lucas Giolito, he was a guy that was going to take the ball every 5 days, and he's never really had any issues with injuries. So it just sucks. Obviously, it's
that came out of nowhere. I mean, that was shocking.
And it was sad. And when interviews, he was like saying it was his fault, how upset he is that he wanted to be on the team. Lucas, we love you. We hope you have a great recovery, and we hope you opt into your contract for next year, because you're going to be a great asset for next year for sure. This rotation right now, I'm happy Brian Bayo got his contract extension, because now we don't have to worry about talking about, is he going to extend? Is he going to stay here? It's good to know that he'll be here until 2030. His development has been really good, especially working in the offseason with Pedro Martinez. You could see his fastball is a little bit more electric, and his delivery has changed a little bit, and it just seems like he's a more confident pitcher now, and that's what you need when you're on the mound, especially from a guy like Brian Bayo, who is now labeled as the ace of this rotation. You need a guy who's going to be confident, a guy who's going to take the ball every 5 days and anchor this rotation. Like you said, a guy who I really think is going to be a sneaky guy in this rotation is going to be Cutter Crawford. I think Cutter Crawford, before this start that he got a little roughed up today, he had a sub 2 ERA and he had a whip of like over 1.08. He looked really, really, really good this spring, except for that one start, obviously. And that's something that I like to see because I'm a big Cutter Crawford guy. I've been to I think last year I went to like 2 or 3 of his starts. And I feel like every time I've went, he pitched the ball very well. Against the Dodgers, it was one game he had. He pitched really good against the Dodgers. Got shaken up towards the middle of his start. But he's a guy that's going to give you a lot of innings. He's going to give you 5 to 6 innings, and he's going to keep you in ball games. Nick Pivetta, another guy, last year coming out of the bullpen, was very, very good out the bullpen for the Red Sox. And he wanted to be in the starting rotation. He didn't want to come out of the bullpen last year, but he did it because he's a team player. Now he's in the starting rotation. That sweeper looks really good. It has a lot of good break on it. Yeah, that's a new good thing too. Developing pitches is something that's important as a pitcher because it helps with your repertoire and it helps you from tipping your pitches and being predictable. Hauk, I have opinions on Hauk. I think he should be a reliever, but as we speak, obviously, he's a guy who's going to give you innings. He's been looking pretty good. I like his slider. He has a really good slider, and he also developed a pitch. I think he developed a cutter in the offseason. So it's good to see these pitchers developing. And then, of course, Garrett Whitlock. How could you not love the greatest janitor in Major League Baseball? He's amazing. Love the guy. Garrett Whitlock's a guy, and especially he's been going through a lot, obviously, emotionally after everything that's been going on with him, and that he's opened up about it. God bless him. I love Garrett Whitlock, and I think he's going to be really good in this rotation this year. And hopefully, I would love to see Jordan Montgomery on the Red Sox. Scott Boras screwed over a lot of his agents this offseason. Fingers crossed. We'll hope, but like you said, I don't see it happening. And if Montgomery is to sign, bold take, I think he signs in like the middle of the season to a random team just to get some reps.
Yeah, I mean, the consistency and durability are going to be the keys here, okay? And the front 3 guys have shown that they can do that. Hauk has to prove that he can be a starter over the course of a year and do it well and get past the 5th inning. And Whitlock, he's the one that's looked at the best of the 2 of them, I think, this spring. I think that he's found himself. He's rededicated himself a little bit. I think that he's maybe lightened up a little bit. He's always stone-faced serious, and he lost his brother last September, in a horrible accident. And I think that maybe, he looks at life a little bit differently. But yeah, I think if they can just be consistent and do okay, you're not going to be in the situation we were in late July and early August, trotting out openers 2 of the 5 days in the rotation. Okay. And they're building, some minor league depth. So let's talk about, we're going to nice segue. Let's go and talk a little bit about the bullpen. Kenley and Martin both pitched today. Both looked efficient and sharp. Each one, I think, threw 11 pitches, which is what you want. Let's talk about the end of the bullpen, and then we can talk about the guys leading up to them. So, they're both not spring chickens, but, what are your thoughts on at the end of the pen?
The one thing I like about the end of the bullpen, especially with Kenley and Chris Martin's coming off of one of the better reliever seasons we've seen by a Red Sox since Jonathan Papelbon's 07 year. He had like almost a sub 2 ERA and was very dominant in the 8th and 7th innings for the Red Sox last year. Chris Martin, I'm happy he's healthy because obviously he was going through a lot of injuries this offseason and in the spring. That's why he had a delayed start, but he's looked really good. And it's good to see Kenley back as well. Kenley Jansen obviously has been vocal this offseason as well with all his concerns about the Red Sox and the way the roster is. But he's a guy, he's been popping up in a lot of trade rumors this offseason. But he's a guy who's going to take that ball and he's going to try and shut the door for you every game if you have a lead. I love those 2 guys in the back end. And I also want to talk about if everything goes well and the Red Sox are performing very well, just imagine a 3 backdoor of Martin, Jansen, and then Liam Hendricks coming back in late July, early August. That is very scary, and especially if he is healthy, he is a dominant reliever. That might be the best 3. That might be the best trio in the bullpen in baseball, arguably, especially if they're all pitching at the top of their top level.
Yeah, no, Liam Hendricks he's due back at the beginning of August, I think, or sometime around that. That's the same as making a deal at the deadline, and everybody's looking for relievers at the deadline, and the Sox have one, on a rehab that if he comes back at 80% will probably be better than anything they could pick up in the open market at that point. But yeah, I like the end of the bullpen. The good news is that if they're not in it at the deadline, both those players will bring you value to a competing club. I think that of some of the moves that Heim made, these are two moves that I think were solid for the team. You've got veteran quality back end guys who know how to pitch, have had some success, know how to win. Okay, that's good. Now you back it up. You've got, your long guy, Winkowski, right? They had, Rodriguez made the stat. Rodriguez made it as the second lefty after Bernardino. Slayton, the kid that they picked up, to go out and take a Rule 5 player and trade for him after somebody else has already picked him up. That's such an unusual move. They see something in this kid, and he's shown it. Let's talk about the pen. So what are your thoughts on the pen?
I really like
before the end. Sorry,
I really like the bullpen, especially Brendan Bernardino, who had a really good year last year, and I think he's great as a left-handed reliever. The Red Sox need some arms, obviously, and that front of the bullpen, it's not as bad as people thought. Obviously, you're adding Chase Anderson today, which is going to be like a longer reliever. Obviously, that's a veteran guy too, who can eat innings, which is good, especially if let's say you have a bad start from Cutter Crawford or Brian Bale. Let's say they get rocked a little bit and you're still in this game. It's 5-3. You can bring him in like the second or third inning, and he can eat like 2 or 3 to 4 innings for you. Guys like that. Isaiah Campbell's another guy who I think when he gets called up, he'll be really good. He has a really good slider. Another guy that I really like in that bullpen as well is, obviously, it sucks to see him get hurt. Chris Murphy, he was a really solid lefty, but I don't think he's coming back anytime soon, which sucks, which I hope he comes back. And another guy who I think Winkowski got a little bit rocked in one of his starts. They were going to put him in the bullpen, or not the bullpen, in the starting rotation originally, and then he got rocked against the Phillies, and Alex Cora said, hey, you're going to the bullpen, which I think is the right move. Winkowski's really good in that bullpen. And Slayton, I really like him. I think he's going to have a solid year, especially having another lefty in that bullpen really helps the Red Sox. And there's one guy that I think the Red Sox, keep an eye out on him just in case. Zach Kelly, obviously he got sent down to AAA, obviously, to start the season because obviously last season it sucked to see him get injured in that first week of the season. Zach Kelly worked his way back. I feel like just give him some more time, and obviously that's also good because the Red Sox have a lot of relievers stashed out in the minor leagues. That worst case scenario, a next man up mentality. If you need help with that bullpen, you can always move a guy up from AAA Worcester and to be able to help this bullpen. But the front end, we have a lot of depth, which I really like.
Yeah, I mean, there's options there. You got a glimpse of the future with when Christopher Troy got in today. He looked really good, in his one batter. But yeah, and they do have a bunch of moving pieces. To your point, it's too bad about Murph because he was doing. He started to show that he belonged. And then you're right. I don't think he's coming back anytime soon. There's too many unanswered questions there. Isaiah Campbell, they're gonna pitch him as a starter down there, so he has some value. Slayton, they got to keep him, but he hasn't done anything to not say, hey, you've done well here. I showed you that you can trust me, and in certain scenarios. And one of the things that I think that Breslow's done is that he's made better pitching depth, both at the major league and at AAA. You got a kid down there who has closer stuff in Luis Guerrero that can in the upper 90s, and does it with the fastball and the slider. And boy, can he pop a glove. So, if things if things break down or things don't go according to the way that they should, and they start shipping out pieces, he could be somebody you see brought up. But I mean, I think Breslow's done a pretty good job in getting what he thinks he needs without breaking the bank. Okay. And this has been such a bizarre offseason in the way the contracts have been structured and everything else. And, you know, I mean, you look at what happened to Yamamoto last week in Korea.
It was pretty bad.
I mean, my God, 4 runs, 5, you know, 5 runs, 4, you know, 45 ERA now. He looked, I did tape the game and I watched it a little bit. He looked like he was just lost. You know, hopefully they'll figure that out. Had, you know, in the construction of the roster, had there been any real surprises that you know so far? You know, we got a pretty good idea of what's going to happen. And any surprises that you didn't see happening?
I really didn't see, obviously. I did see Rafaela making this team. I thought he was going to make it as a bench piece, but the fact that he's going to start makes me very happy because he's a kid who, and even in the minors with Worcester last year before getting called up, he was a guy who was hungry and is going to make a big impact on this team. I think that I was surprised also to see too how the outfield has really performed. I mean, Jaron Duran, obviously, God bless him for coming back from his mental health issues. His mental health is no joke. And he's really been looking really good this spring, especially with he looks like he's developed a little bit more power, which is good. And it seems like also that he has been, I love the bleach blonde, by the way. The bleach blonde is a style. He's been looking good. And he's also been talking about his approach at the plate's a little bit more different. The way he runs looks a little bit different too. He was talking about how he doesn't want to waddle no more, how he wants to run straight through. And I expect him to have a breakout year. I think as long as he can, like, because you think last year was a breakout. If he could develop power, he could remind us, everybody, of like 2011 Jacoby Ellsbury. A guy who has power, a guy who has speed, a guy who can make an impact out there. Moving him to left field, it makes it a lot better because now you have speed in the outfield, but you have more range out there with Rafaela Roman center field. So it takes a lot of pressure off him as well.
Yeah, it limits the exposure of the flaws in his game, particularly on defense. And that's why I was saying when we talked about it earlier that where he doesn't take great routes in center field, he doesn't have that problem, particularly in Fenway, where all he's got to do is look up over his shoulder and he's got a 37-foot wall over his head. They've been playing him a little bit in right field. Yeah, he's done okay. I mean, he's got the speed. Yeah, please give me Tyler O'Neill or William Abreu out there, please, because both can certainly handle that job. The one that surprised me was Weissert did not. It looks like he's not going to be in the pen to start the season. You know, kind of that arm angle that Schreiber keeps hitters off balance. To my understanding, he was one of the odd men out today. But I was kind of surprised he didn't make it. And you're right about Rafaela. Talk about a kid who loves to play the game, plays with high, and there's nobody hotter on him than him. I saw that one game when he was in Portland last year. His first at bat, he looked terrible, and he was totally pissed off at himself. Collected himself, and then got a couple of hits, and then went in the outfield and made a spectacular catch. It's like, all right, not happening. But he's one of these players who will always be tougher on him than anybody ever else could be. He's his own worst critic. So I think that's the thing that drives him. And as he said, when he called first thing he called his mom, called his wife, called his brother. He made the team. He was ecstatic. And that's good to see because you like to see young players get excited, and he's fit right in,
Mm-hmm.
And you can only dream about what it is that he can become.
He's just such a young talent. He's going to be really good. I said he's such a good young talent, and I think he's going to develop into a great ball player. I think he's going to be a superstar in the making.
And the thing is, he came up as a shortstop, and he was a plus defender at shortstop, and said, he's majorly ready to be a shortstop. And then they put him in the outfield, and surprise, surprise, isn't he a defensive superstar out there? Mm-hmm. So wherever they're going to put him, okay, if they need to put him at second base, put him at second base. I have no cause with the kid playing there because he has talent. He's an athlete, and he's a baseball junkie. He just just give me a glove and I want to go out there and play. Okay, I can run, I can hit, I can field. I just let me see the field, coach. I'm ready to rock. So anything else you want to add to our discussion of the roster while we kind of get near the end here?
I think one thing I want to add is with the way the roster's shaped up right now, how many wins do you project the Red Sox to have? A lot of people are projecting them to have, a lot of people are saying under 80 wins, close to 80 wins, maybe a couple games over 80. Where do you think the Red Sox stand right now in the win category? Because if all goes well, this team arguably has a lot of depth and could show some glimpses of what happened in 2021.
I went on record with the prediction show that we did. I said 88 wins, and I backed it up by saying better defense all the way around. Okay. Trevor Story at shortstop for a whole year is going to make a big difference because Kiki Hernandez made me look like a jerk last year because I said he was going to be fine at shortstop, and boy, am I wearing that all over my face every day. I think that you got Rafael in center field. You have a good catcher. You have Casas relearning first base and doing a pretty good job. And the other thing to remember about Story is because of his range, he limits what Rafi has to do at third base. Mm-hmm. Okay. He doesn't have to range that far to his left. Rafi makes great plays when he goes to his right. It's to his left that he ends up, having to get in a little bit of trouble. Okay. So that makes him automatically a better defensive third baseman, and you're not going to see the 22 errors anymore. Okay. I think that he's going to cut that down. I think you've seen that a little bit. He's more deliberate in what he does. He looks more comfortable. I think he knows that the guy to my left is going to handle a lot of it. Kind of a lot of the same way when he had Bogey on his side. Bogey would kind of cover for him a little bit. Story can cover for him more because he's got better range. Mm-hmm. So the defense is better. I think that I talked about earlier the starting pitching, the consistency behind that. All right, knowing that you can trot these five guys out there every day, okay, and that they may not, obviously you're not going to go 162-0, but they're going to keep you in games, and then the team can hit. Okay, that the offense is not going to be a problem with this team. This team's going to hit.
It's never a problem.
Never a problem. The Red Sox are not anemic. I mean, for all their faults last year, hitting was not one of them. And then the real strength of this team is the bullpen. Okay, you've got the ability to have two guys in the 8th and the 9th. They're going to take care of business. You need a long guy. You're a guy like Winkowski who thrived in that role last year. Made 60 appearances last year out of the pen. Never done that in his career. Always been a starter. Came out. They've got two serviceable lefties. Mm-hmm. Okay. And the rest of the pen should be fine. Okay. It's at the end that you're going to be able to make it work. So, before we kind of wrap this up, anything you want to talk about? Anything you're working on these days, and give you a chance to kind of promote what you're doing, or like we always try to do, and help our friends out?
Mm-hmm. Well, lately I just been kind of doing my own thing. I've been going on TikTok a little bit. I've been posting a lot more, kind of like throwback videos and stuff, kind of get ready for the season, hype people up. So I do that. I do also on Twitter. I don't know why I broke the biggest news of the offseason about Heinz ketchup before the Red Sox can break it. So that was pretty cool.
That was great.
Lately, I can't believe that happened and all the news people talk about it. It really humbled me. And then Tanner Houck and Garrett Whitlock joking about it was kind of pretty cool. I was like,
that was hilarious. That was absolutely.
I never saw it. I was like, oh my God, this is like a dream come true for a kid growing up. And right now I'm working on, obviously I'm still doing my podcast, a Dirty Water Red Sox podcast. I've been kind of like working on it a little bit, trying to get a desk, get a new setup and everything. So I'm trying to make everything look good. But I'm supposed to be setting it up. Hopefully by the regular season, we're trying to get everything settled. But that's going to be coming back soon. And I'm super excited because I just love talking baseball. And especially finally having meaningful baseball to talk about is something that's going to make me very happy because my passion is baseball. I love baseball. Baseball's my life. And there's no better team I want to talk about than the Red Sox. Through the ups and downs, they'll always have my heart.
Yeah, I'm excited for the season. I came out of the season recognizing that this was the weirdest free agent class in the world, and that it's just, the Sox were just not going to do what everybody wanted them to do. Management will live and die by full throttle. Okay. What does that, what did that mean? I think they've done a serviceable job. Again, you have a rotation of 5 righties. It'd be nice to have like a Montgomery or a left-hander in the middle there. Plus, if I look at the American League East right now, Yankees are hurt. Okay,
they're always hurt.
Their stud is, in the rotation is done until probably June. And you just, and as much as he pitches for the Yankees, I don't want to see him get hurt. He's a dominant player. I want to, and I just hope that he comes back from the injury and he doesn't have to have surgery, because anytime a pitcher has surgery, it's a long recovery process. It's not the best of all worlds, for the player. This is Toronto's year to make a break, because that young core is getting older and they need to go. Does Baltimore have a really sophomore slump? I don't know. They shouldn't, because they're talented as all get out, but they're definitely a team to beat. Tampa, are they going to go off the rails? They've been living with the luck of anybody for the last few years. Does that finally break down and they have to figure out a new way to kind of do things in Tampa style? But I think there's a chance, and that's why I think I went out on a limb and said I don't think it's unreasonable to think that 88 wins is impossible. Your vibes about this team about being 21, yeah, maybe, and if they're in it and in it well, who knows what Breslow can do at the deadline. He certainly isn't going to be paralyzed like somebody else was at the deadline. With a deer in the headlights look and overvaluing assets that, he could have turned really well, or in the case in 22 where he could have sold off and gotten a lot more, and you could have stocked the system even more. But yeah, one thing that for sure is that Breslow's not afraid to make a move, which is far cry there. And I like it the way the pitching is being developed. Okay. You can see it, they're making the acquisitions they've made, the investments they've made with the guys from Driveline and all the rest. This should be an exciting organization to watch this year and see what comes of all the work that's been put in over the off season. And then, Breslow gets to draft in June. So we'll see what he does then. Well, Rob, I really want to thank you for coming on tonight. It's always a pleasure to talk. We always have a good time when we talk. Again, you can. We'll be looking out for the Dirty Water broadcast. Let us know if you have any other catch-up scoops, because we certainly want to know that.
I got you for sure.
Yeah, for sure. We want to know about that. That was actually funny as all get out. I was laughing my ass off.
Believe it.
But again, I do want to thank you for coming on tonight. It was great to talk baseball with you as always. So for this is going to be the end of this episode of the Pesky Podcast. So for my good friend Rob, and for the rest of the team at BSCN and the Pesky Podcast, this is George the OG Sutherland saying thank you, and come back again and listen.